Hey everyone, so we are here today with Kevin from Purestake, and we're gonna have an amazing talk about interoperability. Even for me, this is a very hard word. So imagine the subject, for non-technical people. I imagine that, when we talk about interoperability, it's something that gives goosebumps to some people. So today we're gonna try to talk in a very easy and straightforward way. What is interoperability? How can we achieve that? What's Polkadot and Moonbeam is doing to achieve higher levels of it? Okay, so Kevin, tell me a little bit more about yourself, like quick introduction so people get to know you better.
Certainly, Tiago. Thanks for having me. So I'm a developer relations engineer at Moonbeam. So I help teams to deploy to Moonbeam and Moonriver. I help with any questions and also work with technical education and also developer-focused events and things like Moonbuilders Academy and Moonbuilders Workshop.
I did the Moonbuilders Academy. It was great. I mean, for me, I had a little bit of knowledge, in programming and some languages, and it was very straightforward. I would recommend everybody to do the Moonbuilders Academy. It's very straightforward. It's simple. Anybody can do it. If I did, anybody can do. So this was great for sure. For sure.
Appreciate the endorsement and the kind words. Most of the credit goes to Henry because he created the V1 of the curriculum. This is V2, and there's going to be a lot more. So we're building an advanced version of the Moonbuilders Academy, and we're also going to be integrating with external teams. So teams like SubSquid, they're going to be hosting, their own course. It's going to be in a similar format, and yeah, we're very excited about that.
Okay, so let's jump in. The subject of today is interoperability, and a lot of people get a little bit scared or have some goosebumps when you talk about it because it's a very dense subject, right? I guess basically we're talking about communicating between chains, right? That's what we're talking about. Maybe you can tell us what is available over there. What is available outside Polkadot? What is in the crypto world? When we talk about interoperability, what are we talking about?
For sure. The traditional methods of kind of interoperability are EVM based bridges, which are pretty versatile. You can stand one up relatively quickly, and it can work with maybe a variety of assets. But these EVM based bridges, they're not meant to handle billions of dollars worth of value, and they do have some significant trade-offs versus kind of what's being built with Polkadot. And the fundamental problem when you bridge a token, to a new network, traditionally, you're now dependent on two independent blockchains that don't really know about each other. They can't really, listen to what's going on chains, and they can't really react to any issues that happen. So if you have, just a normal token on Ethereum, that's one thing. But if let's say you bridge that token to Binance Smart Chain or something like that, and then you interact with it and put it into like DeFi or something, you're now dependent on two different chains. And so you may be thinking that, hey, I'm only, working on Binance Smart Chain, but when really you're also dependent on Ethereum. And if there's a reorg or if there's an issue, if there's anything that happens to either chain, right, then you could be in a serious amount of trouble. And so it's an increase, in risk where you're making a trade-off for convenience purposes, which it could be suitable for small amounts for early days, but it's not really built for the long term.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I think about bridges, we're talking about third party that has nothing to do with or Ethereum and Binance, like you said, and they're not actually transferring the token, right? They are like depositing, holding the tokens on the native chain and creating a voucher for you in the other chain and say, this is worth what the native token worth, but this is like their word. And, like there is this thing, like it's not the real token, right? It's a voucher that is printed by a third party that is not even of the chains, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, as we've seen in years past and in months past, when there are incidents with a bridge, the underlying token might not be there, in a one-to-one manner. So you have a wrapped IOU of wrapped Ethereum on this new chain, but the underlying Ethereum token might not be there in that contract after an incident.
But maybe you can tell us what Polkadot is doing to solve that. Like when you think about Polkadot, everybody mentioned about interoperability, about the parachains, the communication, so on. So what are we bringing as a Polkadot team, as a Moonbeam? What are we bringing differently from what we currently have?
What the Polkadot ecosystem, the approach that Polkadot takes, which is different, is kind of instead of having one blockchain to rule them all and trying to dial up the parameters as much as possible, Polkadot is taking the approach of saying, let's let each blockchain specialize in what they're best at. Maybe they're good at privacy or decentralized identity or storage or smart contracts like Moonbeam. Let all of these chains specialize in what they're good at, and then we just need to find a way to connect them all. So when Polkadot launched, it launched its parachains, back in January. We kind of fulfilled that vision of having, multiple independent specialized blockchains, but we didn't yet have a way to connect them. With XCM, we kind of do have a way that has been realized.
That's the next question. What is XCM? Because every article that you read or every people on YouTube that you want to watch a video about it, they talk about the XCMs. So what is exactly XCM?
It's written in all these articles, I think, because it's a major distinguishing feature of the Polkadot ecosystem, and absolutely what Moonbeam is focused on going forward, and what many parachain teams are also looking at. XCM stands for cross consensus messaging, and it's just a way for chains to communicate with each other. Now, the first application of this is token transfer, and it's token transfer that is similar to a little bit like bridging, but fundamentally it's a lot safer. And the reason for that is because this is happening under one relay chain. So you're never going to have a scenario where one blockchain thinks that one event happened and the other one has a different understanding of those events. That would never happen because the ultimate ledger of what happened, right, that's being validated by the Polkadot relay chain. So you can think of this as these transactions ultimately settling on one relay chain, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, because the way I see it, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, XCM is it's a way to communicate like bridge is, but XCM is a different way. It looks like a bridge in some ways, but like you said, the problems with the bridges is that you cannot rely on any of those chains, and you are actually relying on a third party that has nothing to do with the chains. And what XCM does is creating this channel of communication between the chains, right? The parachains, or maybe the relay chain as well. We can talk about more of that in the next one. But it's done in a way that is more secure because it's confirmed, and I would say confirmed and authorized, let's say, by the relay chain, which is Polkadot, right?
And one thing to mention is that, in traditional bridges, you have one chain that maybe has way more value than the other, right? So if you're bridging from Ethereum to BSC or BSC back to Ethereum, you have these disparate chains of varying amounts of value, and it goes back kind of to the Polkadot's model of shared security, where the proof of stake that's securing the Polkadot relay chain is always going to be greater than any individual chain. And you're not really worried which parachain has more or less in terms of its total stake, right, or the market cap of the token or something like that. You're not really worried about that because you know that the total economic backing stake of the relay chain is going to be greater than any of those individual parachains.
That's cool. That's cool. Another thing that when you go in the deeper layers of these XCM, I always see about the VMP and XCMP. I think I have no idea. Can you tell us, like, for people that is non-technical, what are those two, I don't know, maybe methods or categories of XCM?
Oh, for sure. So, so sending an XCM message is only possible if you first established a channel. And you can establish a channel, via democracy. So this is something, that's voted on by the community. In testnets, it's something that developers can do, just for testing purposes. They can do this a lot more easily. But for a mainnet, you do need to have the approval of the community. So these channels, they're one way. They're saying, okay, a message is going to originate on Moonbeam, and then it's going to go to the Polkadot relay chain, or vice versa. It's going to originate on the Polkadot relay chain and go to Moonbeam. So if you want to talk back and forth, then you need to have two channels in that case. And the way they're set up is that the origin chain kind of makes a proposal, and it says, I'd like to create this channel, and then that needs to be accepted by the destination chain. And if it's not accepted, then no messages are going to be able to get through. So when we talk about VMP, stands for vertical message passing, and that's just between a parachain to the relay chain. So like Polkadot to Moonbeam, or Moonbeam to Polkadot.
So I imagine that those tokens, the XC tokens that we see in Moonbeam, they are the horizontal communication, right, between chains. And we say, Akala, I'm going to use your token in our chain. But what are the cases that I'm going to use like the VMP? When do I communicate with Polkadot? Why would I do that?
Oh, this is a fantastic question. So actually with XCMP, right, when we say like cross-chain message passing, we don't really have, or Polkadot does not have that established just yet. XCMP refers to cross-chain and sending messages from parachain to parachain, such as Moonbeam to Akala. But right now, that's not possible except for going through the relay chain. So it's we call that horizontal relay routed message passing. All of these names are kind of complex, and the exact naming scheme is really not that important. You can just think of XCM, right? You can just think of message passing, and you don't really need to worry about, okay, is it going directly to the parachain, or is it going first through the relay chain? The point is that it does eventually get to the correct destination. So right now, yeah, if you wanted to send a message from Moonbeam to Akala, Moonbeam would send a VMP first to the Polkadot relay chain, and then the Polkadot relay chain would dispatch a message also via VMP down to Akala. This is it takes a little bit longer, but it's really no different from the user experience perspective. So yeah, we will have a direct parachain to parachain communication going forward, and we'll have channels that are open directly between each parachain.
Yeah, you say it take longer, but every time that I do bring some KSMs, for example, to Moonriver, it's matters of seconds. It's like, it looks very fast. And when we change to the communication of between parachains, that's the benefit that we're gonna see, like even faster transactions. Is there any other benefits besides that?
Yeah, it'll be less like storage bloat on the relay chain. So less things for the relay chain to have to manage and handle the state for that. And one question that I missed, whereas you asked, how or why would you interact with the relay chain? And I think you answered it, kind of by the first major application is migrating, XC DOT, or migrating, your native DOT tokens to Moonbeam, or your native Kusama tokens to Moonriver. And the first huge applications are this is the first time that you've had substrate assets that have been able to be used in DeFi. So I would kind of say that you're in the last year, right? You've had two major use cases, for your Kusama tokens or your Polkadot tokens. Is you've maybe either participated, in parachain crowd loans, or you've maybe been staking those tokens. But now it's kind of like you have, beyond tripled. You've just opened up a whole new world of opportunities with DeFi, because you can put these tokens in any sort of DeFi application, whether it's lending and borrowing, whether it's yield farming, whether it's pooling, yield aggregators, that type of thing. Yeah, it's something that we're quite excited about.
Yeah, we did some tutorials for how to use KSM in light of finance, right? You did one, I guess, for us. And we have Moonwell as well. So there's several opportunities, right, to take advantage of your KSMs, just way more than just staking those, right?
Indeed.
Maybe can you talk us about the versioning? When you talk about XCMs, like there's a lot of versions of XCM. So how does it work?
So each message that you send via XCM, the first thing that it starts with is a version number. And that's important because, for a system to evolve and to be able to upgrade over time, it can be difficult to coordinate all of the stakeholders at the same time. So if Polkadot took kind of like a traditional approach, they might say, hey, everybody, we're upgrading, from version 1 to version 2. You all need to upgrade your parachains. You need to have a new runtime. And by the way, if you don't, all of your XCM messages they're going to stop working. It's like, that would be a huge problem.
Right.
So instead, we kind of lump these upgrades into specific versions, and then each parachain can decide when it would like to upgrade at its own convenience, generally speaking. And XCM is forwards and backwards compatible. That means that if you're a parachain and let's say you're on V2, you can send to a parachain that's on V1, or if you're a parachain that's on V1, you can send to a parachain that's on a different higher or lower version. Now, that doesn't mean that all the features will be available. There might need to be some interpretations or features that maybe are not available for a parachain that's on the older version. But the point is that it just works, right? It's 100% compatible, and that you're not going to have an instance where something breaks. So I think that's quite powerful for advancing XCM. And this is a protocol that's evolving quite quickly. There are some dramatic differences between XCM v3 and XCM v2, and we expect that there's going to continue to be upgrades to XCM for a very long time to come. And we've spoken a lot, right, about asset transfers, right? And that's not the only application of XCM. That's just the first. It's the first use case, and there's a lot more to come, and I can touch on that if we have time.
Yeah, of course. What are the other use cases that we can have for XCM?
Thank you. So we touched on kind of the DeFi use cases. We touched on kind of migrating substrate assets from the relay chain. But one of the things that we're also excited about is the issuance of native assets such as USDT or Tether, which is actually going to be natively issued on Statemine. And this is a huge deal because typically when you're interacting with USDT, you might have a bridged version of it, maybe from Ethereum or another chain. And there may be a couple different flavors of that. But to have a token that's natively issued on Statemine is very powerful. And we can transfer it to Moonbeam. We can transfer it to other parachains. And again, having that native asset is a major endorsement of the Polkadot ecosystem. And we can see this type of asset launch, so to speak, on Moonbeam as well, right? We can have assets that are being launched on Moonbeam and then can be transferred to other parachains. But so I touched on Statemine and Tether, but there's one more category that I want to kind of cover, and that's local assets. So we've spoken about how we have these substrate native assets. Those are XC20s. They are your XC DOT, they're your XC KSM, and that was the first type of asset. But local assets are assets that originate on Moonbeam and then can be transferred via XCM to other parachains. So we're working on a workflow or a protocol for how we can maybe batch these requests together, or have a way for developers to kind of request getting their asset listed, or maybe just help them, shepherd them through the democracy process for getting this asset listed.
Oh, that's cool. And just to one topic, just to mention one thing when you mentioned about the USDT and Statemine, and just to be clear, because some people doesn't know what Statemine is, correct? Again, I would try to explain like for non-technical like me, but Statemine is a common good parachain, which is like basically a safe parachain that will always going to be there. It's secured by Kusama or Polkadot, or Statemine and Statemint, right? And they're secured by Kusama Polkadot. So it's kind of the relay chain is minting those tokens, right? I mean, they are doing that natively in the relay chain. So that's why it's safer, because it's not depending on one parachain. It's like the same security that we have in Polkadot, right?
Just my personal, opinion here is that it can kind of be non-denominational, right? Statemine is kind of like an independent, opinionless, parachain where, anybody can have these type of common good assets and maybe, launch in like an unopinionated, substrate compatible way.
I see. It's interesting. Yeah, it's a very good approach. Like when you think about the structure of Polkadot and how much thought was put into it, right? In how having the parachains. Just think like a beginner. Like just think about the parachains and relay chains already like mind blowing. But when you think about like all these communications, having common goods parachains, being able to create those assets and bridge, it's all fantastic.
Polkadot is incredible, and Gavin Wood, by starting Polkadot, he set out to solve really all of the issues that Ethereum had, and we're seeing that in progress today.
Yeah, couldn't agree. Well, any final thoughts, final words about interoperability? What can you tell us?
Absolutely. So the ultimate vision, right, of XCM is to allow you to take advantage of various functions and specializations that happen on each chain. So you may be on one chain and you may want to, let's say, interact with another chain that specializes in privacy, but you may not have an account on that chain. Well, you could simply via XCM, you could make a remote contract call. This is not possible just yet, but it's in development. You could interact with that chain without having an account, without even knowing anything about that. And all of your execution fees could be paid in whatever you already have. So if you have Moonbeam, you could just pay your fees in Moonbeam, and you could not worry about getting, your tokens on this specific parachain. So with this, we're kind of realizing a unified ecosystem where it's greater than, the sum of the parts. It's not an environment where you're like hopping from chain to chain to chain and trying out everything new. It's more like you have a home base, such as Moonbeam, and you're interacting with these different parachains, and you're benefiting, from this interoperability. And, vice versa too. People may be on another parachain and they may say, hey, we want to interact with a dApp that's only deployed to Moonbeam, but we don't have any Glimmer tokens yet. So let's make an XCM call to interact with the smart contract. So that's kind of, where we see things going, where, in the execution, of getting these channels, established, getting all of these transfers and assets listed. And then, we can kind of move on to the deeper and next level possibilities of XCM. So it's a very exciting time, to be in the Polkadot and the Moonbeam ecosystem. And, we're thrilled to be a part of it.
That's great. That's great. And again, I share the same words. It's exciting times. It's a new phase that we're living in, with several and exciting upgrades that we have, like you mentioned. So Kevin, I would just like to say thank you so much for this interview. I guess there's a lot of topics that we covered, and people will be thrilled to, to listen and learn a little bit more in a easier language. So yeah, so again, just thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Tiago. I really enjoyed it.
All right. See you next time.